Good morning, everybody. All right. So, I started a little early today. My ride is going to be coming right about when we normally start. So, I'll be hopping in the car with Tom Morris and Dallas Sandoval off to Tri Cities to go and have some fun. All right. So, we started the Olivet Discourse yesterday and we gave a little bit of a historical introduction. And I don't know how far we'll get. I don't want to just go ahead and teach Matthew 24, but as a church, when we went through the Gospel of Mark, which was the second book I taught as a church, we did Romans. I guess technically Philemon was my first message, but I ended up going to Matthew 24 because there's more in Matthew. And so we'll be jumping back and forth between the two of them. So I would say, hey, bounce back and forth. Now, that's what the first word of the verse is. Verse 3, now as he, Jesus, sat on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately. So again, Luke 21, in contrast, it does not appear to be this private conversation. Matthew and Mark explicitly say, after the talk about the temple stones, they walk across the Kidron Valley over to the Mount of Olives, short walk if you've ever done it, and there they have this conversation. Luke 21 appears to be them at the temple still. They start the conversation about the stones, and Luke 21, though a lot of the wording is really similar, it seems very parallel. And I think it is parallel in many ways, but in Luke 21, he is focusing more on the literal destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Mark and Matthew, he's looking on to the future, even our future. So it says, they came and they say, tell us when these things will be, and what will be the sign when all these things are fulfilled. It does kind of make me wonder if I go over to Luke 21. Now notice in Luke 21, we're doing a parallel study, so it's going to maybe take longer as we're jumping. Luke 21, Mark 13, Matthew 24. In Luke, it says that some of the people spoke of the temple, how it's beautifully adorned, not one stone will stand on another. Teacher, but when will these things be? And what sign will there be when these things are about to take place? And so again, it's they asked him, and it's just kind of going right into it. Now, in Matthew, we have a little bit of extra info, though. Tell us when these things will be. What will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? And I think that's the key, is that Matthew and Mark talk about the coming of Jesus and the end of the age. Luke focuses there. So I'm going to be done with Luke. Put Luke aside. Let's just look at what we have right here. We'll flip back and forth between Mark 13 and Matthew 24. And so Jesus said, take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and will deceive many. So right off the bat, false Christ. And that's something we've seen. And, maybe if you're my age, like, I don't know, if you're 40 and under, maybe if you're 50 and under, but you might be less familiar with all of the false Christs that have even been in America. But I want to say if you're 60 and older, you probably remember some of the stuff that's come around. And so it is one of those things, like every generation seems to have people coming up claiming to be Jesus. And sometimes they come, and you know what happens? They turn out to be false, and they go and they get forgotten about. But in the moment, people are really, into this stuff. This isn't a false Christ, but speaking of his coming in the end of the age, I remember when Harold Camping was stating when the rapture, or when and people were selling stuff, and so that was a big deal. Students were asking me, is this the real deal? Do you think the world's really going to end on this specific day? Yet many people have forgotten about that. And people who are, 10 years younger, they don't have any recollection of it. For those of us that were living through it and paying attention at the time, we remember there's a lot of false Christs, a lot of false prophecies. And we even see Gamaliel talking about this in the book of Acts. He says, hey, this Jesus guy, we've seen other people rise up and then go away. And so if this Jesus guy isn't the real deal, well, he'll just rise up and then go away too. But if he's the real deal, then this stuff's going to stick. And so Jesus is warning them to watch out for false Christs. Now, let's see if we can get down to 13. We won't spend forever in the Olivet Discourse, though it'd be kind of fun. He says in verse 7, for when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be troubled, for such things must happen, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There'll be earthquakes in various places. There'll be famines and troubles. And these are all the beginnings of sorrows. Now, this is all the stuff that's just supposed to lead on up. It's not the stuff itself. It's stuff that is leading on up. Now, you can also see some parallels, though. I see people go back and forth on how to exactly divide this text up. There is parallels to the seal judgments. False Christ, well, the Antichrist gets released in the first seal. Wars, well, that's in the second seal. The famines, pestilence, earthquakes, that's the third and fourth seal. So there's an interesting parallel there we do see. But watch out for yourselves, verse 9. For they will deliver you up to councils. You'll be beaten in synagogues. You'll be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony to them. And the gospel must first be preached to all nations. But when they arrest you and deliver you up, do not worry beforehand or premeditate what you will speak, but whatever is given you in that hour, speak it, for it is not you who speak, but the Holy Spirit. Now brother will betray brother, and father his child, and children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake, but he who endures to the end shall be saved. Now, here's the deal. Two things, giving a little bit of application for us today. Firstly, we should realize things are supposed to get bad and worse. And that seems to be the message of the Bible. And if you look around us, that sure seems to be the reality we live in. The world doesn't seem to be getting better. The church definitely doesn't seem to be getting more victorious in a practical sense as you look around. Things are getting tough. Now, one thing is that all of us should learn to just believe Jesus. What do I mean? Well, premeditating what you will speak. So many people are afraid to speak because they feel like they have to have the perfect words or they have to know what to say. And Jesus says, no. In that hour, and I'll be honest, in this hour and in every hour, if you are willing to speak, the Holy Spirit will speak through you. And we need to be telling people about Jesus and sharing the gospel. We need to be bringing salvation to a lost and hurting world. It's so very important. And so many of us are so cold and so calloused and so distracted and so delusional. And so I can keep the list going if you like, by Satan, that we're not sharing the gospel. And we're doing everything else under the sun with our time other than taking the cure for death to a lost and hurting people. We don't need to have it all perfectly planned out and prepared. We just need to obey God and open our mouths, for it is not you who speak, but the Holy Spirit. You are a vessel for the Holy Spirit, Christian. So pop open the mouth of that vessel and let the Holy Spirit pour out. That's all you got to do. Now, he who endures to the end shall be saved. You could take that and misinterpret it, misunderstand it. Enduring to the end, it has the meaning of like bearing patiently. So This is not an if then. If you endure, then you'll be saved. And therefore, if you do not endure, you will not be saved. That's not what's being said here. One thing about Greek is it kind of clarifies that a little bit. What's being said here is that you should bear patiently. Why should you bear patiently? Because you know that in the end, you're going to be saved. So, he's not trying to give an if-then statement. Those who bear will be saved. Those who don't endure will not be. He's saying, I'm encouraging you to hang in there and endure. Bear all these trials, all these troubles patiently because salvation is waiting for you. The full completion of your salvation, right? We have been saved, we are being saved, and one day we will ultimately see the completion of our salvation. We've been saved from the penalty of sin, but right now we're being saved from the grip that sin has on us, but one day we'll be saved from the presence of sin itself. And so just bear it. Bear it. I like the end of the song, "Oh Come to the Altar," right? It says, bear your cross while you wait for the crown. And that's what we're called to do. And that's what Jesus is encouraging them here. And if we think times are tough now, they're only supposed to get tougher. Do you want proof? I've got proof. You ready for this? If you were alive and an adult, or even a teenager, 10 years ago, would you have ever imagined things are at the way they are today? Look at how much has changed in 10 years. What on earth will it be like if we're still around 10 years from now? Things are going to get tougher. But bear your cross because you're waiting for a crown and it's going to be worth it. All right. God bless you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow morning, bright and early. 8 o'clock tomorrow. Shouldn't be anything changing my schedule as far as I know. Friday morning, we'll continue the Olivet Discourse.